Hi, and welcome to the 10 square metre workshop. Having recently finished my Dudley tool chest casing, see previous videos for this, I'm now ready for the fun bit, filling it with tools. And as a way of easing myself into this, I'm going to start with making a chisel mount for one of the doors. Better get started. The chisel mounting block was machined in the mill to give accurate spacing. First, various sizes of Forstner bits, followed by this taper drill, which gives an approximation of the taper of the shaft of the chisel. Trimmed to fit the frame, I can now address the needs of each individual chisel. The first three fit in without any modifications required. The rest will need relief for the blade. Turns out 3 needed slots, the rest didn't. That's all that's needed to store the chisels, but of course this is not about need. So after a lot of cutting, planing and sanding to make extra parts, glue and clamps again. Ivory's kind of illegal these days, but there are resin type substitutes. However, I've got this piece of Corian in just off-white. I think that'll do for me. I sawed a piece off and mounted it in the lathe, turned it down to 10mm, flipped it end for end and turned down the other end, and I have my ivory blanks. I'm doing the engraving on my scratch built CNC machine. See my videos on how I built this. It doesn't take long. I'll fill the engraving with dark brown paint. And wipe off the excess. And we have lettering. And part it off 2.5mm. And I now have a set of buttons in inverted commas ivory. After putting it together, shaping and a light rub down, it's ready for installation. But first I'll put the buttons in. Drop of glue, then I squeeze them in using parallel draw pliers. And with that I installed it. And then populated it after a coat of tung oil. It could probably do with a bit more unnecessary decoration, but I'm still learning. So, how to decide where to put the contents? Well, the number 7 plane is so tall that it has to go this way, either to the left or the right, and the left seems traditional, so it will be along here, with the other planes next to it. The Japanese Ryoba saw is also full height, so that'll have to go on the other side, with the other 2 saws next to it of course. A small block base, labelled with which saw goes in it, goes at the bottom, with a slotted block at the top to keep them in place. This will need retaining pieces. These have turned out of ebony, genuine, with ivory inserts, fake. These were secured using brass dome screws, as shown. And this shows it in place. Quite pleased with that. I don't want to waste the space above the number 7 plane, so I'll make a small box or shelf space there. The box above the plane started life as 4 cut pieces. It needs to be a very good fit, so I machined the vertical parts in the mill, followed by a 5mm cutter to cut the rebate on both parts. Yes, I know this is silly accuracy for woodwork, but it does no harm. Repeat for the other side, and I've got a very accurate box structure. And yes, I've got plans for the contents. For assembly, I cut out a rectangle with a coping saw on the bottom and put these 2 slots in. They'll come into play later. Then it's glue, clamp and weight in the normal way. Whilst waiting for the glue to set, I made some ancillary parts, including fences and the flap at the bottom, which has steel pins running in brass bushes. Assembled, it looked like this. And when the box was dry and sanded, I could put it in position and glue it. The last item is a strap to stop it opening too far. Can you guess what it's for yet? When it's finally in position, the flap will normally lie open. But when the number 7 plane is put in its holder and slid back, it holds it in place. With the use of a finger, releases it and out it comes again. Neat, huh? And with the side guides fitted, it could be clamped, glued in position. You will note that this top box is slightly wider than it needs to be to cover where the planes go. That's because serendipity applies. The gap between that side and the saws is exactly right for my brace. The brace required brackets to hold it in place. So quite a bit of sanding involved here to get a nice well-rounded shape. These will be mounted using 6mm dowels, so I made this jig to make sure they're placed the right distance apart. So here I'm using my dowel jig to drill the 2 holes to hold the brace support. And here it is, mounted in position. I was going to fabricate the top drawers in the normal manner, but I thought, let's experiment and try hugging one up with a solid block of wood. First get the top flat and level. It's quite a good finish. Then flip it over and mill the other side to 100mm deep. The drawer space is 101. With all 4 edges milled square and to size, I can start surfacing. With that side done, and it leaves a remarkably smooth surface, I can flip it over and do the other side. First layer done. I'm using the 16mm cutter for speed. I'll go over with a smaller one for the corners later. And yes, I did miss a little bit. That's covered by the next layer. Second layer. 1 more to go before changing cutter. Third layer done, and I've switched to a 5mm cutter to get at those corners. After squaring off those that needed it, I did the recess to take the tongue and groove tool. And finally I plunged all the way through to create a finger lift slot. And here it is, with the rags removed and items installed. I now have to make a tray for the top pieces. Yes, I could have CNC'd it, but you only get 1 shot at that. And I actually adjusted the design slightly a couple of times as I was cutting. Next job was to apply veneer to the front. Didn't think I was going to leave it plain, did you? When the veneer was set, I milled 2mm off the front, top, and the same off the bottom, but narrower. I then clamped between 2 large blocks to prevent tear out and machined the front recess, which is an oval shape. A little bit of cleaning up and it's ready for the cock beading. These are quite fiddly parts and delightfully unnecessary. After ebonized staining, I glued the long strips on first. That will allow me to fine tune the end pieces. And they're a bit fiddly. The drawer was then sanded and oiled and filled with the cutter bits in 2 layers. And here it is in place. Got to make the other one now. Here I have both the small drawers in place. One holds all the cutters for the combination saw, the other the bits for the hand router. I shall now be making the parts to hold the egg beater drill. It will be held in this arrangement. First step is to get all the support pieces in place, so that it now looks like this. Now I can get on with the embellishments. I'm going to use it to hold bits as well, of course. Then we'll see what else. Next came two 15-degree slopes with holes for the drills. So this is the arrangement for drill storage I settled on. Add the drill supports and the side supports, and it's ready for glue up. With the finish applied and the drills in place, ready to install. There's an excellent place for my Yankee screwdriver next to the Japanese saws, but not sitting on a crude block like this. But that's a bit more like it. The next step is to make the auger holder. This of course must be unnecessarily complicated, and it's going to be mounted behind the brace for which they're meant. The pieces for the auger frame is largely cut out on the CNC machine before being trimmed to size, ready for assembly. With the main two parts glued together, I now have to make the 2mm dividers. I cut these out using my track saw, and they're amazingly good. So smooth you'd think they'd have been planed. The parts were assembled into this box shape, then a lot of dividers made, 11 in all, which were carefully glued into position. The top decoration for the auger bay is also a CNC cutout, but don't imagine it's just press and cut. There's a lot of hand finishing involved. A coat of finish, it can be mounted in place. Now installed, the augers fit neatly between the two supports for the brace, which hangs just in front of them. You don't need the bit if you don't have the brace. Well, of course there's a lot more work to do before this is finished, but I'm really enjoying the build, and I hope you find it interesting. Why not subscribe to make sure you don't miss any? That's all for this time. Bye for now.